Agenda item 1A, call to order. I, Chair Thomas Kyle, call the hybrid electrical and elevator board meeting of March 23rd, 2023 to order at 9:30 a.m. Debbie, would you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Chair Thomas Kyle.
Here.
Vice Chair John Flagel is absent, excused. William Barlow. William, can you speak up, please? Sure. Thank you. Amy Byer, connected virtually. Thank you. Elizabeth Bunga. Elizabeth Bunga. We'll come back to Elizabeth. Sara Currie.
Here.
Sarah is in the room. Thank you, Sarah. Brian Ledoux is excused. Robert Lazalier. Rob Lazalier. We are having volume issues. I'll come back to Rob. I didn't hear him. Robert McNeil. He's connected virtually. I did hear him. Ryan Richards is in the room. Ryan?
Here.
Thank you. Al Schacher?
Here.
Thank you, Al. Randy Smith? I heard him. He is connected virtually. Ken Spencer, he's in the room. Ken?
Here.
Thank you. If we could just take one moment to see what the sound issues are. I apologize for the issues. It'll just be one more moment, please. Robert Lazalier, can you say something, please? Yeah, I see that you're here. We're still not hearing you.
Let me see what I can do.
There we go. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to go over the people that I did not hear, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. Elizabeth Bunga?
Here.
Thank you. Okay. And Robert Lazalier? I just want to practice your name, Robert.
I'm here.
Thank you. Robert McNeil?
I'm here.
Thank you, Rob. And then Randy Smith.
I'm here.
Thank you, Randy. And Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Item 1C, are there any changes to the amended agenda or order of business? Any members? Okay, I, Chair Kyle, ruled that amended agenda and order of business approved. Item 1D, I, Chair Kyle, ruled the draft minutes of January 26, 2023 final. Retain the date of the next scheduled meeting is May 25th, 2023. Okay. Item 2 is public comment. Is there anyone signed up?
Thank you, Chair Kyle. Ian Paik, analyst with the division. We did not receive any requests for general public comment. However, I would like to take a moment just in case there's anyone on the Zoom or in the room that would like to provide general public comment to the board. Hearing none, that concludes general public comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Agenda item 3A. This is contested case. Kathy, would you present these?
Yes, good morning, Chair Kyle and members of the board. My name is Kathy Rowell, contested case representative for the Building Codes Division, and I'm here to present first the James Way license denial case and the division proposed final order in this matter for board consideration. I'm going to summarize the case and explain the 4 documents in your packet, and then we'll be available to answer any questions you may have about this case. A quick summary is that factually, we believe this case is quite straightforward. Mr. Way applied for a reciprocal general supervisor electrician license in December of 2021. Under Oregon law, OAR 918-030-00453, there are 3 requirements to get a reciprocal license. A is to possess an equivalent or higher license of the reciprocal state that's current and active with no violations in the past 3 years. B is to be qualified for the reciprocal license by passing an exam with a score of 75 or above. And finally, and most relevant for this case, is C, have worked a minimum of 6 months in the reciprocal state. When Mr. Way applied in December of 2021 for the reciprocal license, in the section of the application regarding the 1,000-hour requirement, Mr. Way left that section blank and wrote a 3-page document about why he did not have to comply with that requirement of Oregon law. The division denied his license in March 2022, and Mr. Way hired an attorney, Caroline Janzen, who requested a hearing on his behalf. That hearing was finally held on January 27th, 2023. Neither Mr. Way nor his attorney appeared at that hearing. We held the hearing and asked Administrative Law Judge Webster to issue a proposed order, which she did on January 31st of this year. That is attached. That's one of the, there are 4 documents attached in your packet. Let me mention that too. There's a board memo, which I'm kind of summarizing. There is the final order that the division has prepared that we're asking for the board to consider today. And there are 2 exhibits, Exhibit A, which is ALJ Webster's proposed order, and Exhibit B, which are the exceptions that Mr. Way's attorney filed on his behalf. So in her proposed order, Administrative Law Judge Webster agreed with the division that Mr. Way, A, had an application that was incomplete, and B, that Mr. Way failed to meet a condition or requirement of Oregon law. The division agrees with this conclusion that the license should be denied. Based on the exceptions listed in Exhibit B, the division found no good cause for reopening the hearing that was missed on January 27, 2023, and furthermore, finds the exceptions to be without merit. So based on all these facts, the board today has 3 options. 1, issue the division drafted final order that is in your packet, along with all the language that we have in there, with the attached exhibits A and B as the final order of the board denying Mr. Way's license. Number 2 would be to amend the proposed order issued by ALJ Webster, and that is Exhibit A in the packet, and specify what the board would like to alter or change in the proposed order. And finally, the board may disapprove the ALJ's proposed order and direct the division to approve respondent's application for the reciprocal general supervising electrician license without proof of the respondent working the 1,000 hours in the reciprocal state. Thank you very much, and let me know if the board has any questions about this case or what we're asking the board to consider.
Okay, thank you. Does board members have any questions? Okay, I guess the other thing, I don't see him on Zoom, but is Mr. Janzen or Ms. Janzen or James Way on Zoom?
Yes, can you hear me? This is Miss Janzen.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Good morning. So it's our argument is very simple as to why we want to vacate this order. We're asking the board to please reopen the hearing to allow Mr. Way to present his case. We were not sufficiently notified. Ms. Rowell was emailed by our office on January 17th and asked also verbally by my assistant to include her in every correspondence with our office. When we were noticed on January the 20th, 2023, I had a respiratory virus and I couldn't move. And, you know, we just had no sufficient notice to even know that the hearing was occurring on January the 27th. If Ms. Rowell would have just included my support staff, we would have been able to sufficiently calendar this. And the reason why Mr. Way and I did not show up is we weren't aware of the hearing at all. We're simply asking and respectfully requesting that you allow him to have his due process and allow him to just present his side or his case and then make a ruling and a judgment that's fair and considers all aspects of things. All, you know, what Mr. Way is, what his points are. And so I just, yeah, that's basically it. I had no idea of the hearing. I was very sick. My staff wasn't CC'd. We had requested that. And it looks like she did CC my staff in a correspondence on January 17. And then even for this hearing, there was no staff that was CC'd. It's just that I'm not sick at this point, so I'm able to monitor my email. So that's I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Janzen. Is there any response?
The only thing I will respond is that the email that was sent out providing notice of the hearing on January 27th was not sent out by myself. It was sent out by Administrative Law Judge Webster, and it was sent to Ms. Janzen.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from any of the board members? Okay, the chair will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion for the final order for James Way and attach the proposed order written out by the Administrative Law Judge Webster as Exhibit A and support the findings.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion? Debbie, would you call the roll?
Yes, sir. William Barlow,
Aye.
Amy Byer,
Aye.
Elizabeth Bunga. Elizabeth Bunga. Elizabeth, you have your microphone muted.
Hello?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Do you vote yea?
Hello?
Yes, Elizabeth, do you vote yea or nay?
I apologize. I don't know what happened. Nay.
Sara Currie,
Aye.
Robert Lavalier,
Aye.
Robert McNeil,
Aye.
Ryan Richards,
Aye.
Al Schacher,
Aye.
Ken Spencer,
Aye.
Randy Smith,
Aye.
Chair Thomas Kyle,
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you, Debbie.
May I clarify really quickly for the record that the board is adopting the final order the division is prepared along with exhibits A and B that have been attached to your packet? I heard it, exhibit A, but I didn't hear exhibit B, so I just want to clarify that.
That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Item 3B, additional contested cases.
Yes, thank you. I'm still Kathy Rowell. I'm still the contested case representative. Today we have 6 consent orders for the board's consideration. Those are included in your packet along with the orders. So I'm going to run through these through the chart really quickly for board consideration. The first case would be 2021-161 Larry Dovich. That case involves assigning supervisor, Mr. Dovich, some work that was done on an apartment building in Portland, Oregon, allowing unlicensed worker to perform electrical installations and not being continuously employed while designated as assigning supervisor electrician. Data violations, August 2021. The penalty assessed was $3,000, imposed $1,000, suspended $2,000, and we also conditioned Mr. Dovich's license for 6 months, requiring him to attend an Oregon Rule and Law class, and also to notify the division within 5 days of entering into a relationship with any future electrical contractors as assigning supervisor electrician. The second case is 2022-169. This one and the next one are related cases involving Greg's Heating and Air Conditioning, Inc. 2022-169 is Bobby Allen Lyon, installation of a new heat pump and electrical disconnect switch with no journeyman electrician's license in Albany. In August 2022, assessed $2,000, imposed $250, and suspended $1,750. And then the next case, 2022-177, Greg's Heating and Air Conditioning, installation of new heat pump and electrical disconnect switch, no electrical contractor's license, allowing unlicensed electrical work and no permit in Albany, assessed the company $6,000, imposed $1,000, suspended $5,000. The next case, actually the following 3 cases are all related to Platinum Electric, Inc. 2022-95 is the Platinum Electric, Inc. case, installation of sheath electrical cabling and electrical outlet boxes, rough-in electrical installations, allowing unlicensed electrical work in Carlton, June of 2022. We assessed $4,000, imposed $1,000, and suspended $3,000. The next two cases are kind of return cases. These are both employees of Platinum Electric. Y'all have previously heard these cases, and they were approved by the board. However, when we got those two orders back, we realized there was some language in both orders about some low voltage electrical wiring associated with a garage door opener that was actually not a violation. And so we amended these two orders for Mr. Yost and Mr. Mahar. And if you look at the actual orders themselves that were provided in the packet, it notes why we're amending the two orders in the very introduction of the order. Nothing changed about the penalties assessed from the previous orders, and these penalties have all been, the opposed amounts have all been paid in full. So we're just bringing these back to have y'all approve them once again with the amended language with the non-violations taken out of the garage door opener.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Kathy on the
Yes,
proposed
I'll be able
orders?
to answer questions.
We'll entertain a motion for to approve or disapprove.
I motion to adopt the 6 cases proposed for resolution as outlined in the Enforcement Board report and issue final orders.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, Debbie, would you call the roll?
Yes, sir. William Barlow,
Aye.
Amy Byer,
Aye.
Elizabeth Bunga,
Aye.
Sara Currie,
Aye.
Robert Lazalier,
Aye.
Robert McNeil,
Aye.
Randy Richards,
Aye.
Al Schacher,
Aye.
Ken Spencer,
Aye.
Randy Smith,
Aye.
and Chair Thomas Kyle.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank y'all very much.
Okay, agenda item 3C, electrical program update. Keith Anderson.
Good morning, Keith Anderson, Electrical Program Chief. Thank you. Good morning, Keith Anderson, Electrical Program Chief. So I'm due to retire on the 31st, but I've been asked to stay on a temporary position, and I've accepted that. So I will still be available and help with getting the position filled, the chief position. So anyway, wanted to let you know I still will be here for a little while longer if you need something relating to the electrical code, so in the electrical program. So it's been an honor to be part of this. And I also wanted to share we have comment forms that we send out with all the tests for the applicants to, when they test, they leave comments. We get them back. We like to get these. They generally have to do with test questions and complaints and that sort of thing. But this particular one actually reflects all the work that the committees have done for us, rewriting the test questions and the updating and that. It was very positive. It's, he went 2 pages on it. I'll just hit the first part here, but he says, I'm thoroughly impressed with this exam. I've taken the equivalent exams in 5 states, and this one is by far the best. It is extremely well thought out. So anyway, just wanted to acknowledge those people that were part of the committees that helped to rewrite those and get them updated. So that's all I had, unless someone had a question for me. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Item 3D, elevator program update, Warren Harku.
Good morning, Chairman Kyle, members of the committee and the board. Warren Hartung, Chief Elevator Inspector for Statewide Services. I'm reporting this morning after missing the last meeting. I apologize. COVID finally caught me. January and February, along with the action reports on the back side. It's all pretty similar. We've been down this road a few times, but if there are any questions, I would entertain answering them for you.
Are there any questions for Warren? I'm still impressed with the last thing I learned at the meeting, that we have a writing public. I hadn't heard that term before. But
We try to integrate as much as we can.
yeah,
Thank you so much.
thank you. Item 4, Todd Smith, Executive Order 2304.
Good morning, Chair Kyle, members of the board. Todd Smith, Policy and Technical Services Manager for the division. Just wanted to follow up on an item we had communicated to you previously regarding Executive Order 2304, which establishes the statewide housing production goal and the Housing Production Advisory Council, referred to as the HPAC a lot of the times, if you hear that. That the HPAC has been formed. They're starting their work. We in the division have started supporting that, and we're moving down that road. So just wanted to give you guys that update that is moving forward, and we'll see what we get out of it. But if I'm happy to answer any questions about that if you have any at this time.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item 7A, and this is the adoption of the 2023 Oregon Electrical Specialty Code. We have a number of people that are going to be speaking towards this, and I guess we'll limit their time to 6 minutes each, if they need that much. And Ian?
Thank you, Chair Kyle. Ian Paik, Analyst with the Division. The Division requests that the Board review and approve the provisions of the 2023 Oregon Electrical Specialty Code and recommend the Administrator proceed with rulemaking. At the July 28, 2022 meeting, the Board established that a Code Review Committee would be formed and recommend the 2023 NEC as Oregon's model code. At the September 22, 2022 meeting, the Board announced the Code Review Committee members and selected a chair. This committee met 6 times beginning December 13th and finalizing its recommendation on January 24th, 2023. Your packet includes the 2023 OESC committee matrix highlighting the draft changes to the amendments and Code Review Committee recommendations. Chief Anderson is here for technical support, and this item will require a motion, examples of which are outlined in your agenda. Before the Board discusses, Nicole Elise Smith Dahmen has requested to speak on this agenda, as have Mike Stone, Gerry O'Connor, and Kevin Ritz. Are those of you online present, and would you like to speak on this agenda item? Thank you.
Okay, I'm not hearing from anybody. Is there anybody online that is on mute?
Who are we asking to speak now? Excuse me.
Yes, if you're online, go ahead. You can recognize for 6 minutes.
Okay, my name is Kevin Ritz, and want to thank you all for letting me speak here this morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I have a home near Scampoose. I'm appearing before you here today as a marine electrical instructor and most importantly as a father. I'm here today to voice my opposition to the proposed amendments to the 2023 NEC code, and please allow me to explain. 23 years ago, my son Lucas, 8 years old, was swimming in a life jacket near a boat. When he was floating on his life jacket, of course, let out a scream and passed out, apparently. We were able to get him out of the water, and I was able to do a quick assessment and realized that he had stopped breathing and that his heart was not beating. I performed CPR for approximately 20 minutes until the EMS services arrived. Subsequent investigation found that he was electrocuted by a vessel leaking at AC 120 volts into the water. My wife, when she jumped in, as I was down a little bit further, she was the one that jumped in first. She was also shocked badly. And of course, our family was devastated at the loss of our son. So you folks can probably understand my emotions when I learned about this proposed amendments and that you were considering to the 2023 National Electric Code. I was really taken back that we are moving, in my opinion, very far backwards. One amendment in particular, the 555.13, replacement of equipment will actually remove the requirement for ground fault protection on any device equipment replacement in marinas, including power, boats and loading docks. Why this is important to me? Because, gentlemen, this very amendment, if we had had this in place all those years ago, that being ground fault protection, as is required everywhere else, had been imposed in that marina, my son would still be here today. There's no question that would have taken that fault, shut power off to that boat that was leaking 120 volts, and we would still have our son today. I think about how many lives that this really simple protection has saved over the years. I've spoken with a gentleman that actually helped develop these ground fault protection devices, and it's impossible to measure the number of lives that have been saved by these things because we can't measure things that haven't happened. The 2023 NEC is recognized as a National Electric Code of Safety to be followed to protect us, to protect the public and family and kids like mine from losing their lives to electrical accidents. A lot of thought and expertise is put into creating these requirements that have been adopted in numerous other states, including, some of the states that you might think would be less progressive than our state of Oregon, for example, Alaska and Kentucky. As an electrical expert myself, I know that. I know that this technology and safety protections improve year after year, and that's why keeping up with the NEC is so important. I know that all of you understand the strong electrical codes require builders, electricians, and others to follow these codes to keep us all safe. I'm not sure what motivates anyone from removing these safety protections. I do want to give you a very good reason not to amend this code, and that is people like my son, people that have lost their lives to this. Please protect our kids like him and others in the future. Please remove these amendments and pass the 2023 NEC amended today. Oregon deserves the highest level of safety and protection for our citizens and our kids. Thank you. I'm very happy to answer any questions.
And I'm sorry for your loss. Keith, do you have any comments?
Yeah, through the chair. If I could wait till all the comments have been made, I'll follow up at that time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Is there anyone else to speak?
Mike Stone, would you like to give a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. My name is Mike Stone. I represent NEMA, the National Electrical Manufacturers Association. I also represent NEMA on Code Making Panel 1 for the NEC. And so NEMA applauds Oregon for adopting the 2023 NEC. The way that electricity is generated and used and transmitted is undergoing fundamental change. So the newer editions of the code recognize that, and they recognize that. So it's vital that we adopt the most current codes. We are opposed to a number of the amendments that are in the Oregon Electrical Code, Electrical Specialty Code. And I did attend 2 of the committee meetings, one in person and one virtual. I would have attended more, but the weather canceled my flights. So I want to specifically call out some of the amendments, and these are all in Table 1E, which I believe that's in your agenda package. So the ones in particular that I would like to point out, and by the way, these are all directly related to life safety, fire and life safety, electrocution, fire hazards in the NEC. The ones in particular that I'd like to point out is in section 210.8 for ground fault circuit interrupter protection, and that protects personnel against shock and electrocution hazards. There are 13 amendments in there. And then section 210.12 for arc fault circuit interrupters, that protects wiring against arc faults and ultimately protects against residential electrical fires in particular. There are 6 amendments in there. In section 230.67 for surge protection, that protects branch circuits within a dwelling unit, dwelling units only, and it protects sensitive electronic equipment such as smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, GFCIs, AFCIs. It protects those against surges. That whole section was amended out of Oregon's code. And then Article 555, which the gentleman that just spoke online referenced that. There are 3 amendments there, and they're all related to protecting against electric shock in the water, as well as electric shock drowning, which is where a person is shocked when they're in the water and they don't die from the electrical shock, but they die from drowning because they can't move their limbs. So there's a lot of the other amendments. I think there's 19 pages of amendments that you have in Table 1E. We would not want to see any amendments, ideally, but the ones that I just mentioned are, those in particular are directly related to fire and shock hazard. And I would respectfully request that the Electrical and Elevator Board reconsider all the amendments, but in particular the ones that are directly related to fire and shock hazard. Thank you.
Okay, is there any questions for Michael? Okay, none? Thank you, Michael.
Bernie, would you like to speak on this agenda item in addition to the future agenda item? You signed up for this one in addition to your later one? Okay, no worries. Gerry O'Connor, would you like to speak on this agenda item?
Chair Kyle, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you today. My name is Gerry O'Connor with Eaton Corporation. Eaton supports Oregon Electrical and Elevator Board to update the 2020 edition of the NFPA VII.D, National Fire Protection National Electrical Code, to the 2023 edition of the NFPA VII.D with no amendments. Eaton is a manufacturer serving the electrical infrastructure and transportation sectors, dedicated to improving people's lives and the environment with power management technologies that are more reliable, efficient, safe, and sustainable. Eaton employs over 240 team members at 2 locations in Oregon, and Eaton spends more than $13 million with Oregon suppliers each year. Our employees develop, manufacture, and sell safe and reliable electrical equipment, providing market-leading electrical solutions used in general construction, performing to the highest standards of safety and reliability. Many of these products are installed in homes, commercial buildings, industrial facilities, and utilities across Oregon. We commend the Oregon Electrical Specialty Code Committee, OESC, for moving forward with the adoption process for the latest edition of NFPA VII.D. Current codes produce safer and more economically prosperous communities. Eaton has long supported timely and unamended adoption of the National Electrical Code by state and local jurisdictions. We believe the adoption of the most current edition of the NEC promotes a uniform and up-to-date standard of safety for all occupants in the building environment. Updating NFPA VII.D with no amendments ensures communities continue to provide an acceptable level of public safety while supporting the latest technological advances, which is core to the OESC mission. For many years, Oregon has adopted the newest edition of the National Electrical Code, prioritizing the safety of its citizens and economic well-being of the industry. However, Oregon's code now includes over 200 amendments that impact the level of electrical safety protections provided to residents in the state. This could place Oregon as one of the states with the most electrical amendments in the country. We understand the OESC is considering recommendations for amendments to certain provisions of the code and urge caution, given the amendments will negatively impact Oregonians by reducing the level of life safety and property protections provided to residents. This is especially true when considering protections for GFCI, ground fault circuit interrupter, and AFCI, arc fault circuit interrupter circuits, which pose a greater life safety risk. So, I guess how many lives need to be lost in the state before a change happens with the code adoption process here in the state? I have a list of a few people that were victims from electrical shock just by doing a simple search online. Right, a 40-year-old male plumber died after laying on his work light while installing plumbing under a house being remodeled. The victim was crawling under the house carrying a work light with him. The electrical wire inside the work light's conduit became bare and energized by the light's housing. The victim owned a company and he was the only employee. So the CAFACE investigator concluded that in order to prevent future occurrences, employers should use a ground fault circuit interrupter, GFCI, when using cord and plug tools or equipment. Use battery or low voltage operated work lights wherever possible, relocate ground wires, and etc. 8 of 2014, or in Osha, Oregon, the worker was standing on a plastic bucket using refurbished double insulated saw to cut holes in the sheetrock ceiling of a home under construction. The saw's power cord, which had an inadequate splice in it, was plugged into a 120 volt extension cord, and the extension cord was plugged into a power strip. The worker draped the 120 volt extension cord that powered the saw around his neck so that the plug was resting on the left side of his chest. It was a hot day and he was sweating. He died. Princeville, Oregon, March 2021. A 26-year-old man was fatally electrocuted Tuesday afternoon while burning decorative designs into wood outside his camp trailer at an RV park in East Prineville, Crook County Sheriff deputies said. Deputies found a man later identified as Kyle Johnson lying on the ground by a camp trailer. How many bodies? And that was just a simple basic search on Google. The cost of an AFCI, GFCI is minimal when compared to what we see in homes today, including granite, quartz countertops, bathroom fixtures, lighting candelabras, and ceiling fans, hardwood floors, tile, and more. The cost of an AFCI, GFCI can be rolled into a 30-year mortgage of a home for the owner to minimize the financial impact of them. We're talking pennies on the dollar. A $250,000 loan at 7.195 interest rates for a 30-year fixed mortgage has a monthly payment of $1,696. A $251,000 loan at the same price is $1,703, a $7 a month difference. The added AFCI, GFCI would not be more than $1,000 to protect the home. And it is estimated if it was a larger home, a $500,000 home, we're talking about $4 a month in difference.
Thank you, Gerry. Your time is up.
Time is up. Thank you.
Any questions for Gerry before he leaves the table? All right, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Gerry, I do believe all three of those incidents you reference, under construction power, you're supposed to plug into a GFI. So, and then I know that on trailers and RV pedestals, those are currently GFI protected under our existing rules. So any of the adoptions we do when
I believe
covering
you've amended out the GFI protection for mobile homes, just like you amended out 555.
Those currently have to be GFI'd in Oregon.
They do have to be GFI protected.
On pedestals and RVs are already GFI'd when they come wired from the factory, so.
The marinas?
No, I was just citing your three examples there.
It is an extensive, I mean, EV chargers, every other areas of the code, you amend GFCI protection completely out of the code.
Sara Currie, I'm a journeyman electrician representing the board. I'm also a safety, I have my CHST, which is Construction Health and Safety Technician. I just want to point out that, like Brian was saying, extension cords are required to be plugged into a separate construction GFCI before plugged into an outlet. And then also, your cords are required to be inspected and removed from use if there's any bare wire showing. So a couple of those examples are, you know, just definitely the responsibility of the employee working on the project.
So why does it matter? Why do you put less protection on 1 and 2 family dwellings than you do on a construction? Why are the requirements much less when it comes to someone owning a home that has power tools working on their home, in their yard, and elsewhere.
Yes, sir. I know that we have people on the board that aren't wiremen and aren't electricians. And each of those instances, exterior plugs have to have GFI. Kitchens have to have GFIC. So there's, not to say anything against having people be safe, but if those people that you had talked about all were not doing what they're supposed to be doing to start with and using insufficient tools. And you're true, it may have helped them if everything in the world was GFIC, but in this case, we'd already had passed reasonable rules to make that happen.
I'd like to apologize to Mr. Ritz, who lost his child. And it is devastating for anybody. And with the amendments you currently have in this code, if those were not amended out, things like that would not be happening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Nicole Elise Smith Dahmen, are you online? Are you here? Perfect.
Good morning. Thank you all for having me be here today. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the chair and the members of the board. My name is Nicole Dahmen, and I reside in Eugene, Oregon, where I'm a professor at the University of Oregon, and I'm a mother of 2 children, one of whom is here with me today to see government in action. I am also a member of the Phoenix Society for Survivors of Burn Injuries, and like others, I am here today to discuss your adoption of the 2023 National Electric Code, and I am urging you to adopt that without the amendments that have been proposed. Burn injuries are one of the most painful, horrific injuries that a human can sustain, and I know this firsthand. I was burned severely in a kitchen accident at the age of 1 year old. That accident caused 3rd-degree burns to more than 20% of my body. My injuries were critical, and I spent 5 weeks in the hospital fighting for my life. I almost died numerous times. I had skin graft surgeries to replace my burned skin, and later in life, a series of reconstructive surgeries. I know hundreds of other burn survivors, and it's one of the most devastating injuries that a human can sustain. I also know hundreds and thousands of stories of people who died from their burn injuries. Burn injuries happen in a split second. You never see them coming. They can happen to anyone from any walk of life at any moment in time. Burn injuries can result in severe, unthinkable disfigurement. Many burn patients lose body parts, fingers, toes, noses, ears, legs. To this day, I still have noticeable burn scars that cause me discomfort on my neck, my chest, and my arm. My recovery is incredibly long and grueling, but physical recovery is really just the beginning of a burn injury. Burn injuries forever alter a person's appearance. Yes, they do heal, but the scars do not disappear. Emotional recovery is a lifelong process, and people with burn injuries are often subject to ridicule and exclusion. This can translate to depression, shame, isolation, self-loathing, things like addiction, and people taking their own life and death by suicide. A life lived in the shadows and a person often pushed to the margins of society. I fully support you all adopting the 2023 NEC in its entirety without these amendments. Please do not remove these life-saving protections from the 2023 Electrical Code. I urge you to prioritize safety over cost. I am not an expert on these. I will fully admit that. I will defer to the experts who are here today, you all included, but I urge you to prioritize safety. I'm an Oregonian and I care about our community and our citizens, and I don't want anyone else to go through what I went through, and I appreciate your time and having me speak here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Keith? Would you like to respond now?
Okay. Keith Anderson, Electrical Program Chief. So I'm going to respond to the process. I'm sorry for those people that have had loss. That we don't regulate watercraft, and I'm really sorry to hear, you know, about Mr. Ritz's loss. Again, it's hard to protect everybody from every accident, you know, that can happen. I too have had third-degree burns on my leg, and I carry the scars from 12-year-old till, you know, forever. So I understand they're very, very painful. So I understand that, and I'm sorry, you know, to hear about, you know, your story and that. But the process, okay, let's get back to that. So I'll just speak about myself a little bit. I've been an electrician in the industry for 45 plus years. I was an electrician, you know, for a dozen or so years, and then I was a field inspector for almost 30 years, I think it was 28 and a half. I've been in this position now for a little over 8, so I've seen a lot in the industry. I've also had the privilege and the honor of being part of the code update committee since the 2008 code. Happens every 3 years. So this is my 6th code committee that I've sat on. The people that they picked, there were 14 of us this 2023 code adoption cycle. And everyone on that code committee is very similar to my experience. They're very well trained. They have seen a lot of different things out in the field, the inspectors, industry, different people that have been involved. And there, I think we're 23 or 25 that applied for this committee this time around. So we go through the code. Every code, all the 6 of them that I've been on have been the same. We go cover to cover through the code and go through every item and all the updates, everything we can. We build a code that is for Oregon. So when we adopt brand new codes, because we do try to keep as current as we can, you know, we're not, a lot of them are still on the 14 code. Florida's in the 2014, a lot of them in the 17. They are a little slower, but we're always cutting edge, you know, as far as when it comes to code. A lot of times products are not caught up with the installation practices that are going on. The GFIs that we're talking about, they're a great device. When they were originally created, it was the bathtub thing, you know, the kids pulling hair dryers and radios and stuff in bathtubs. It saved a lot of lives. It was a great invention when that came around. I personally know one person in particular I think of that lost a child that way. So as this expands, the GFI has continued to expand in places that are not quite ready yet for the products. There are some incompatibility issues that we found, and we took those into consideration. The EV chargers won't hold, the chargers themselves, they won't work when they're plugged into GFI. Their GFI is built right into the charger, and when you add it to the circuit, then they conflict and they don't work properly. So we remove that. We remove it for specific equipment is what we've done, because again, we've had issues in our practice with freezers tripping GFIs and losing freezers full of meat, that sort of thing. So it's been, what we do has been very specific, and it's time proven, you know, over the years that I've been in the field. So I'm not aware of anything that we have specifically done that have caused some of these incidents that have been brought up. So the committee is very thorough. We have a lot, well, we met 6 or 7 times. There's a lot of interaction, you know, out of the meetings going on. Many of the members are on the national committees that write the code, the national code. So we're all very well versed in what's going on, and we don't do this, you know, haphazardly. It's very, very well thought out. And I think it serves Oregon well, what we've done as long as I've been in the industry. We're very highly licensed here, but if somebody's going to go out and do something wrong or bootleg something, and we cannot protect people from that, we can't. So the purpose that we start out in statute is 455.020, the purpose, the scope, and the application. And the thing that I always bring to the attention of the committee is the state building code shall establish uniform performance standards providing reasonable safeguards for health, safety, welfare, comfort, and security of the residents of this state who are occupants and users of buildings. So we also have structural and plumbing codes that we also have to interact with. And so some of the amendments and things go on with these codes are the interaction for, you know, the EV, putting that in for future, or PV future expansion for buildings. And those are all taken into consideration. So we also look at cost. Cost is not a huge part of it, but we are asked that we consider those types of things too. So anyway, I know, again, as being part of this process, we were very, very thorough. It was in line with everything we've done with previous codes that I've been part of, and I think they did a great job. And we all have the same goal to prevent accidents and save lives. So we all have grandkids. We're all concerned to try to make things, you know, as safe as we can for them. And we felt like we've got it dialed in quite well for Oregon and what our needs are. So I have opened any questions.
Gerry?
Sorry, Gerry O'Connor, Eaton Corporation. Just like to respond to some of your comments. So Florida has adopted, and will go into effect, I believe, December 31st of this year, the 2020 NEC with no amendments, 0. So referencing they're on the 2014, I'm not sure what they're actually using right now with regards to GFCI. EV chargers do not have GFCI protection built in. They have ground fault protection. GFCI is a term used that is in between 4 and 6 milliamps. You will hear GFCI has trips at 5 milliamps. That's the average in between the 4 and the 6. GFP is different. That is used, it's set at 20 milliamps for a EV charger to be built in for ground fault protection. That doesn't protect the branch circuit coming from a home or outdoors, anything of the sort. So if that is a freestanding EV charger outside, open to elements, that is why they are requiring ground fault protection, or GFCI, on that branch circuit. With regards to refrigerators, if you have a freezer that's 15, 20 years old and in a garage storing your meat, and if you're a hunter, I understand losing that is a very costly item. But as a compressor starts to go bad on these condensing units, that is where the hazard comes into play. And the GFCI is doing its job when it trips, protecting people from when equipment starts to fail. And it is an important part of life safety when it comes to the electrical installation. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Gerry. Keith, before you stand down, the motions here will be to go into rulemaking. Could you explain rulemaking, and if there's chances at that point to change any of these amendments?
Sure. So you're going to vote today whether to move this forward, and then we go into rulemaking. We still have a time where we have a public process where comments can be made. There's a hearing. Comments can be submitted for that. Building codes also looks things over and has a shot at it, making any changes in that. So you want to add anything, Todd? He's going to be much more familiar with this than I am, so.
Sure. Yeah. Todd Smith, Policy and Technical Services Manager for the division. Keith, I think you had most of the process correct, so nothing much to change there. But just to clarify, yes, the board is being asked to vote on the recommendations of the committee, send those recommendations to the division for formal rulemaking and adoption. Part of the formal rulemaking process involves public hearings on the rules themselves. That would be officially adopting the code. So there is another opportunity for public comment after the board makes its decision. And then once the board and the division agree on what the code would be, that's when the code would be adopted and become official as Oregon law. I'm happy to answer other questions on the process.
And then once the before the rulemaking or after the public comments, does it come back to this committee? Not this committee, I mean the committee that formed the...
It would come back to the board if there were substantive changes, yes. So the board, we can't adopt the code without the board agreeing, and the board can't adopt the code without the division agreeing. So if there were some substantive changes that happened, yes, that would come back to the board for approval.
I guess I would like to at least comment on Oregon. I serve on a lot of national committees, and Oregon is on the forefront of and involved in almost everything with the electrical industry, especially the code. Their committee has 2 code chairs that are served on it. There's probably another 4 or 5 people that were serving on NFPA codes, committees that established this 23 code. And so I think that we have some very highly experienced and very expertise on the panel that was looking at all this. Oh, sorry. Kevin?
Yes, I'd like to ask in regards to the GFCI protection. Well, first, 2 things. One is the comment that this board does not regulate marine vessels. They do regulate the power going to these vessels. So, you know, at the shore power inlet is where the ABYC American Boat and Yacht Council code falls in, but up to that point, it does fall under your privy, your jurisdiction. Secondly, imagine how I felt when I learned about 2 days after the accident that Europe, for example, has ground fault protection on all outlets and all circuits, particularly around water. Since they've been putting electricity on the water, I've heard this argument about freezers over the years and or refrigerators. And we've had these ground fault protection devices in marinas and been functioning for a long time without problems. The problems that do occur are with vessels. So I'd like the board just to consider that removing these things or removing the requirements is going to be putting people at risk. They're completely unaware of this hazard. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one comment I'd like to make. We talked about the committee that put it together, and I was able to participate in 3 of the events. And, you know, I want to thank the committee for all the hard work. It is a lot of work, and it is kind of a consensus thing. One good thing about committees is you get all viewpoints. And so as an Oregon professional engineer, my viewpoint is safety above all things, above cost, above convenience. So, you know, Oregon has more amendments than any other state, and we're proposing to maintain that. And it's my opinion that amendments should be the exception and not the norm. And the amendments pertaining to ground fault do concern me, and I think that Oregon needs to stay up with the code and keep current. I think you know, as a professional engineer, I have an obligation to maintain the highest safety that's reasonable, and I think the NEC is a reasonable document that's been derived, you know, by committee, and so I'd just like to make the statement that I'm opposed to amending out issues related to ground fault and arc fault safety. Thank you.
Any other comment from the board?
Through the chair, as a member, this is my second go-around with the code adoption. I have 24 years of experience as an electrician in different parts of the state, and work for a general contractor. And I've installed many of these devices. I've also worked on troubleshooting side of these. I think it's a good process that we go through and adopt GFIs, and the amendments are reasonable to me for Oregon and how we have used electricity within the state. So I'm in favor of moving this forward.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Mr. Anderson, specifically relating to the amendment proposed for Article 555. Could you, which is the boat one, the marina one, can you describe, it relates to the replacement of equipment. Can you describe what happens if it's new equipment installed today, as in a new marina versus an existing marina with existing equipment?
So, through the chair, yeah, I'd be happy to answer that. So, again, my experience is field experience. It's what I had seen, as an inspector, what works in the field, what doesn't work, all the different gray areas you run into and different things. So this actually was amended specifically. I went through an event at the Astoria docks up there. It's an older community. They had wanted to replace, the transformer was falling through the dock. I mean, it was an old dock, and the marina, the whole thing is old. The equipment is old, and the utility asked that the transformer be moved, onto a pole. So they set a disconnect out next to the pole and refed the dock. And then the requirement came around that they had to update, all the equipment to new. The problem with that is it would end up shutting the dock down, is what it would end up having with that particular situation, because not the equipment, the boats were older, the docks were not public access docks. So what it's trying to do is give someone an opportunity to give some leniency on these older installations to allow them to stay in place. The other option would have been, like I say, the dock would have been closed down. And I don't think that serves, Oregon or the community well, to be that heavy-handed with trying to bring everything up to a current code. So, again, it would have been better, to be able to do that. But in this particular case, we have an existing installation rule, in our OARs, and so we consider that with some of these installations.
Thank you for the explanation.
Okay.
Okay, Kevin, would you speak again?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I keep hearing about field experience. I've been a marine electrician my entire adult life. After this accident, it took me down that road. I've also been investigator as part of the Tiger team for the U.S. Coast Guard on in-water fatalities due to electrocution, as well as on board vessels. And, when I think about taking out this life-saving protection, it is, for all the excuses given, it's really hard to look at family members that have lost people. And unfortunately, I've done that many times. And these fatalities, of course, are happening all over the country. And National Electric Code took a number of years to finally come around. NFPA 70, of course, and then NEC coming in requiring these ground fault protection in place to save folks from this type of stuff. I've heard all of the, the financial and everything else. It's really hard to stand in front of families and explain, well, it just costs too much money to put in a ground fault protection device. I will tell you that in the arena where Lucas was killed, I was able to negotiate with the owner, and it cost us $22 per device to install in that marina, and they've been in place now working great for all of these years. And so I'd like the committee to consider that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just
Any response?
Yeah, just a final comment on this. So I believe very much in the process, that we have in place. It's served Oregon very well in the past years. We had the meetings, the committee meetings. We've heard all of these, stories and arguments, during our meetings. So it's all repetitious for those of us that were on the committee. And they were all taken under, consideration and looked at. And again, this is where the committee decided that it met an even standard, and it provided a good safety level for the citizens of Oregon. So I would encourage you to go with the committee's recommendations on this. And anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Keith.
You have one more comment.
Oh, excuse me. Yes. Please come up and state your name.
Good morning. My name is Jim Imlah. To the board, I would like to make a couple of statements. Number one, I've been at these committee meetings for many years. And remember, this is minimum code. The people can go beyond what the minimum is of the code book. That is our first guideline. So again, we're trying to meet the minimum code, which we can go beyond, and still meet some of the requirements for affordable housing. Which way do we go? This committee that was here has fought over this code cycle after code cycle after code cycle, trying to meet Oregon's rules and still provide the safety and protection at an affordable rate. So this is what this committee has done. I commend them very much and support what you have brought in for this code cycle. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any further comment? Okay, I guess we'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed code language and forward to the administrator for rulemaking and subsequent adoption with the findings and added cost, if any, is necessary to the health and safety of the occupants or the public, or necessary to conserve scarce resources.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Debbie, would you call the roll?
Yes, sir. William Barlow?
Aye.
Amy Byer?
Aye.
Elizabeth Bunga?
Aye.
Sara Currie?
Aye.
Robert Larzalier?
Nay.
Robert McNeil?
Aye.
Brian Richards?
Aye.
Al Schacher?
Nay.
Ken Spencer?
Aye.
Randy Smith?
Aye.
Chair Thomas Kyle?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you all for the comment and the thoughtfulness. Item 7B, Electrical Code Review Committee. This is asking for hours, is that right? Am I on the right spot? Request for the committee and staff to receive continuing end hours for the time that they've spent on the process. And the committee would be requesting for 4 hours of Oregon rule and law and 20 hours of code change credit. Ryan?
Thank you, Chair Kyle. Ian Paik, analyst with the division. The chair of the 2023 OESC Code Review Committee requests that the board consider approving CE credit for members of the 2023 OEC Code Review Committee and staff The committee met 6 times for approximately 26 hours, as well as time spent preparing and researching outside meetings. Previous code review committees have received CE credit for volunteering their time. The chair is requesting that the members and staff of the committee receive 4 Oregon Rule and Law credit hours and 20 hours of code change credit. This agenda item will require a motion, examples of which are in your agenda packet. Chief Anderson is available for any questions. Thank you.
Just for information, I talked to the chair and asked if all these persons that were assigned to the committee actually attended, and he stated that they did, and they were worthy of receiving the credit. I'll entertain a motion to grant the 20 hours, 4 hours and 20.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Code Change Committee Chair's request for continuing education hours.
Keith has a list of the names, if you want to include them in the written document, in the minutes. Any discussion? Okay, a motion's been made. Debbie, would you call the roll?
Yes, sir. William Barlow,
Aye.
Amy Byer,
Aye.
Elizabeth Bunga,
Aye.
Sara Currie,
Aye.
Robert Larzalier,
Aye.
Robert McNeil,
Aye.
Ryan Richards,
Aye.
Al Schacher,
Aye.
Ken Spencer,
Aye.
Randy Smith,
Aye.
Chair Thomas Kyle.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Okay, this is item 7D. 7C?
Yes.
Okay, 7C, and this is on continuing ed courses and instructor applications.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair Kyle. Ian Paik, analyst with the division. The division requests that the board considers the CE committee's recommendations regarding the continuing education courses and instructors. This continuing education cycle, the committee reviewed 66 applications from 15 organizations. The committee recommended 37 courses for approval, 25 instructors for approval, and 4 courses were not recommended for approval. This agenda item will require a motion, examples of which are outlined in your agenda packet. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Entertain a motion to accept the recommendations.
I would like to make a motion to approve the committee's recommendations for approval or denial of the courses or instructors.
Any discussion? Okay, Debbie, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. William Barlow,
Aye.
Amy Byer,
Aye.
thank you, Amy. Elizabeth Bunga,
Aye.
Sara Currie,
Aye.
Robert Larzalier,
Aye.
Robert McNeil,
Aye.
Ryan Richards,
Aye.
Al Schacher,
Aye.
Ken Spencer,
Aye.
Randy Smith,
Aye.
Chair Thomas Kyle.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes unanimously.
Okay, this is agenda item 7D, retroactive credit hours for attendees of first aid, CPR, and AED class. Ian?
Thank you, Chair Kyle. Ian Paik, analyst with the division. This item has been brought by Marianne Diane Walker-Pope, and it asks that the board review this request to grant retroactive CE credit hours for attendees of the American Heart, First Aid, CPR, and AED course. This agenda item will require a motion, examples of which are in your agenda packet. Ms. Walker-Pope, are you here, and would you like to speak on this agenda item?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Chair Kyle, members of the board, my name is Marian Diane Walker-Pope, and I'm the owner of a small business called Safety Training. Back in September, I was contacted by Collins Mill here in Klamath Falls to do some first aid and CPR classes. At that time, I was not aware that I needed this instructor certification, which I did apply for and receive. However, we went ahead and we did those classes, and I'm just asking that those classes that were delivered on September 21st, 28th, 29th, and 30th, which included 13 electricians, receive the retroactive credit for those 4 hours of continuing education.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the retroactive request for attendees of the approved course.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Debbie, would you call a roll?
Yes, sir. William Barlow,
Aye.
Amy Byer,
Aye.
Elizabeth Bunga,
Aye.
Sara Currie,
Aye.
Robert Larzalier,
Aye.
Robert McNeil,
Aye.
Ryan Richards,
Aye.
Al Schacher,
Aye.
Tim Spencer,
Aye.
Randy Smith,
Aye.
Chair Thomas Kyle.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. The next
Thank
item-
you.
Yeah. Item 7E is a request from Bernie Schuette for renewal extension under hardship illness waiver. Ian?
Thank you, Chair Kyle. Ian Paik, analyst with the division. This agenda item is a renewal extension request from Bernie Schuette under the hardship illness waiver. His letter is included in your agenda packet, and this item will require a motion, examples of which are in your agenda packet. Bernie, please identify yourself and go ahead.
Bernie Schuette, I work for Central Lincoln PUD, Senior Engineering Technician. I appreciate you folks meeting me this morning. Chairman Kyle, Program Chief, and board members. So unfortunately, I let my license lapse, and I can only blame that on my brain fog, which had to do with COVID. I completed my 24 hours. I completed that on time during my extension. I failed to make payment. It was a silly oversight. So I'm asking you folks to please grant my license. You know, I came here with 2 pages to bore you with, and well, I'll tell you, I'm just nervous as heck, and I can feel my brain fog coming in. So you have my letter. I'm sure that you've reviewed it, and I would really appreciate some leniency in this manner. If it does me any good, I'd like to point out that I am a veteran of the Navy. I did my 4 years. I donate to St. June's every year, and I volunteered on many housing projects, Habitat for Humanity, and I don't want to lose my license. That being said, I'd really like you to consider allowing me to pay for my license and move on.
Okay. Thank you. Would anyone like to speak towards this? Keith, could you comment on the timing?
Well, the timing, there's a year grace period that you have. So, and then the other option, depending on what the board does, you still have, you can still retest, go that way. So it's not something we're going to take away from you forever. So there is another option depending on what the board decides today. So
Yeah, it was unfortunate with the year lapse. During that time was, of course, hot and heavy with the COVID, and boy, I could do 2, maybe 3 answers at a time before I was overwhelmed. I'd get back at it, and I met the deadline, and I was all excited, and I'd watched my mail, and I was watching the mail, waiting for my license, and it never arrived. So I made the phone call. Sure, I waited too long, and come to find out, it had lapsed at that point. I was pretty let down with myself for letting it lapse.
Through the chair, thank you for coming, and I hear you. It's hard talking in front of the public sometimes, and so I appreciate you coming in. But like Keith said, you do have a year where your license goes in default, and you're not eligible to work during that time because your license is not active. But this board kind of has to stick to some rules because we have hundreds of license holders out there in the state. And so if, we make an exception for you, then I feel like, we would just be processing these every other month. So I would like to make a motion to deny your hardship license.
Can I address that before you make the vote? So in doing so, I'm wondering, do you pass anybody? Have you taken the request to use the illness waiver from anyone? And what is required in order to qualify for that? I made my minimal hours. I made those on time. And I feel like an electrical penalty is not super fair because it was a financial mistake that I made, to which I believe that should be my penalty. I'll pay my penalty with pleasure, but in order to have to retest for a non-electrical mistake, I feel is kind of harsh. I don't really understand why the board would want to deny electricians to use this hardship waiver because we're lacking electricians. And I don't want to waste your time by any means, but I do know that a fellow, I think in the last cycle, Mr. Kyle had noticed that he hadn't made any attempt prior to October to make payment or the hours. I had made the attempt. It was a oversight that I did not make the payment. And again, it took me by surprise. I made the effort. It was $100. I would just ask for some sympathy in this case, and maybe not just for myself, but fellow electricians as well that, depending on their license for their livelihood. And I'll tell you, if it goes, I'm not going to retest again. I don't have that type of time to put into the books, and I know that probably sounds pretty CS. I do not rely on my license for work. It's a status. I work as an engineer, and when I deal with my customers, I like to give them the assurance, well, you are working with an electrician. I do have a background. I do have experience. That's my argument.
Mm-hmm. And we're not taking your experience away from you. And, as Keith said, you are eligible to retest if you choose. But yeah, I understand.
Can I clarify something? For him to renew his license, was he supposed to take the original 3 years that you have to take your classes and pay your fee? Was that before October of 2021 or 2022? Was the grace period, the 1 year grace period expired in 2022 or 2021?
So the grace period goes from the October 1st to when you're required to. So if the license was to be renewed in, was it 2021?
Correct.
And then he has a year from that point to take care of everything he needs to bring it up to date.
Okay, so he took his classes right before his 1 year, so his fourth year.
I don't know when he took his.
I believe that's correct.
In the extension period, you took your classes.
Correct. Yes,
okay.
Sir.
So that extension period is just to gain, you're still not licensed at that point, is that correct?
Not until he's completed the payment.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Debbie, could you restate the motion?
Motion is to accept the waiver.
I made a motion to disapprove the request for a renewal extension under the hardship illness waiver.
Okay, any other discussion? Debbie, would you call the roll?
Yes, sir.
Debbie, before the roll, you'll have to include a reason why in the disapproval motion.
I believe I stated those, but because you went past the 4-year line.
Grace period.
The grace period.
Is that acceptable? Okay, all right. Debbie, go ahead and call the roll.
Yes, sir. William Barlow,
Aye.
Amy Byer,
Aye.
Elizabeth Bunga,
Aye.
Sara Currie,
Aye.
Robert Larzalier,
Aye.
Robert McNeil,
Aye.
Ryan Richards,
Aye.
Al Schacher,
Aye.
Ken Spencer,
Nay.
Randy Smith,
Aye.
Chair Thomas Kyle.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes.
Thank
Sorry.
you folks for your time this morning.
Thanks for coming in.
Okay, item 8. Are there any announcements during this time? All right, the next item is item 9, was an adjournment. There being no further business, the March 23rd, 2023 Electrical and Elevator Board meeting is adjourned at 11 a.m. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone, for connecting.